you're watching DD News and I'm Preeti presenting Late Edition. The onset of the week saw India and China engage in high-level meetings which both the sides confirm have helped the two sides inch closer to each other. Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar has pressed the Chinese military leadership on border transgressions, stressing the need to resume the process of clarifying the line of actual control. He also conveyed India's displeasure at China blocking the listing of Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar at the UN Security Council Sanctions Committee. The Defence Minister concluded the meeting by highlighting that India attaches highest priority to the ties with China. Parrikar was accorded a ceremonial welcome at the headquarters of the Chinese military in Beijing by a contingent of the PLA soldiers. Added to this, the Minister for External Affairs, Sushma Swaraj, met Chinese Foreign Minister at Russia-India-China trilateral meeting. Today in Late Edition, we evaluate how far have the two sides moved closer. To elaborate more on this and to discuss, we have two guests in our studio joining us on Late Edition. We have Mr. P.R. Chakravarty. He is the former Secretary of MEA. Also with us, we have Mr. Alok Bansal. He is a strategic expert. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us on Late Edition. Mr. Chakravarty, I'll come to you first. Tension rose when the Chinese president was here in 2014 and the Chinese troops allegedly transgressed and moved into the mountainous area of the Ladakh region occupied by India. That was 2014 and now it's 2016. Both the sides have talked of a military hotline between the two countries. How far have these two nations moved towards strengthening the relationship?
Indeed, yes. You mentioned the transgression in Depsang, I think it was. But the point here to be noted is that both have their versions of the border, that where the border should lie. And hence, they try to patrol to the limits of those lines, which are really not marked on the ground. So these are grey areas. So sometimes it happens that they come in to assert that this is actually where the border is, whereas we say this is not where the border is. The border is further towards you. So we call it happens on both sides, by the way, sometimes. But then when it happened during the president's visit, it was quite surprising. Was it deliberate? Was it actually the act of a local commander? Or, you know, there were lots of speculation. I don't think we've really sorted out that mystery yet. But it seems to me that it may have been done probably at the local level without actually Beijing being fully in the picture.
Yes.
Now, where have we come from there? I think we've come some distance, I would say, because from what I gather is that these kind of incursions have come down a lot. And statistics are maintained as to how many incursions took place at what sectors. But I believe that they have come down. Now, that is a good sign if it has come down. And whether it is temporary and you see, these kind of things can be ratcheted up or down depending on the state of the relationship to perhaps indicate some kind of displeasure by either side. So what will happen is that during the visit, of course, this time, I don't think any incursions will happen. Defense Minister is in Beijing and he's talking to the Chinese, Chinese leadership and counterparts. So I would say that there is an element of, feeling your way around certain issues that it will take a lot of patience and a lot of, I think, diplomacy and a lot of very careful thinking as to what. I think both sides have reason to keep the relationship on an even keel.
Yes, we'll take that thought forward. But before that, Mr. Bansal, what Sir is talking about was in 2014, the reasons which might have prompted the transgression at that time. But it's 2016 now. On one hand, we have the military hotline, which is to come up soon. On the other hand, the Defense Minister also categorically says that Beijing has expressed reservations still about a demarcation of the LAC. Your take on that? How do you read it?
Firstly, before 2014, we had a situation when Chinese Premier Li Keqiang decided that his first overseas visit would be to India. And when he landed up in India, the Chinese made an ingress. And not only did they made a transgression, they stayed put. See, transgressions have been frequent because, as Ambassador Chakravarty said, we have a different perception of line of actual control, they have a different perception, and both the sides have been patrolling up to their limits of line of actual control. But in that particular incident, they came and stayed put, and that created the fissures. The secondly, in 2014, when the Chinese president came, incidentally, Chinese were the first to congratulate Prime Minister Modi when he won the election. And when the Chinese president came, they came into a very different sector where they had never done an incursion, that is Chumar sector, which is again an interesting facet.
Yes.
Now, this particular time, we have defense minister visiting China. We have decided to establish a hotline, and Chinese-Indian bilateral trade and cooperation has been rising phenomenally. But at the same time, China voted against India in the UN Security Council on Masood Azhar's case. And I think India did let them realize that we are very unhappy with this. And this was, I think, done by our inching closer to United States by signing, by agreeing to sign what is called LIMO or something like that. And the Chinese reaction was as expected, slightly muted, because they said India has always had an independent foreign policy. But yes, obviously they are very unhappy, and I think Defense Minister Manohar Parrikar, who went there, has expressed his discomfort with it. As regards delineation is concerned, Chinese have always been resisting this delineation of line of actual control, because the problem with line of actual control, unlike line of control with Pakistan, is that it is neither marked on map nor is it delineated on ground, and as a result both the countries patrol up to their limits of what their perception is. Now, Chinese probably feel that if they delineate the line of actual control, they would be expecting the de facto control of India over that territory which they have. And especially they have a serious problem vis-a-vis Arunachal Pradesh, because they see Tawang as crucial to their subsequent Tibet policy. And that is, I think, the issue which Chinese have to resolve. Chinese are also extremely paranoid about India joining US, and to that extent I think this recent proximity between India and US will cause discomfort in China. India has also been voicing our discomfort to China, because the CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is passing through Indian territory, which constitutionally, legally is Indian territory, and even China accepts that it is a disputed territory according to their 1963 agreement. According to Pakistan's constitution also, it is not Pakistan's territory. So on legal ground, China is actually on a very weak wicket, and as a result Chinese have been pressing Pakistanis that they need to do something about it, that is Gilgit-Baltistan, and that's why there has been of late an attempt by Pakistan to somehow amalgamate this particular region into Pakistan and separate it from rest of Jammu and
That's
Kashmir.
about the countries in the whole region. We'll also deal with it in detail. But then, Mr. Chakravarty, on one hand, you're telling us that both the countries are needed for each other and they need to coexist. Eventually, both are neighbors. But then we'll take up Masood Azhar's case, the way China blocked it at the UN, blocked India's case in the UN. Now, what does that mean? You're talking of both the neighbors coexisting together, but how to get over this trust deficit? Because on one hand, China has blocked the case of Masood Azhar in the UN. And at the same time, we're talking of coming together.
You see, we are living in a different world today, and competition and cooperation will coexist. In other words, there will be areas where we will do a bit of fencing, we will do something, they will do something, yet on the economic and trade side there will be cooperation. We are in fact inviting China to invest in India, in infrastructure, in various other economic activities, including manufacturing, which China is very good, and China itself is going through an economic restructuring, which means that they are interested in investing in India. There is no other country in the world which is today growing at more than 7% except India. So the opportunities that prevail in this large market, with as India grows, the buying power, the consumer demand, it is incredibly attractive for manufacturing companies to set up base here. The problems, of course, are in how we manage this whole transition into a manufacturing economy, in the sense of increasing the manufacturing base of our economy. Now, basically means how we regulate foreign direct investment, what are the security issues. Particularly with China, we have some security issues. And like in the telecommunication sector, we have security issues. But that is all part of the management of the regulatory regime. Now, China is, of course, has a deep nexus with Pakistan. And this Masood Azhar business is basically also conveying to Pakistan that, okay, we are protecting you from the UN sort of, censure, or not sanctions really, I would say censure, because we are basically pushing for Masood Azhar to be designated as an international terrorist, which would obviously mean that countries can seize assets, he obviously will not be able to travel anywhere, because as soon as he travels, he will be arrested. So these are the kind of things India is trying to do. Basically, I know that it will finally probably happen because China will relent, but then it will also a signal to Pakistan to clean up its own act.
You're saying this, and I would want to add here one of the articles here in the press, which says many in New Delhi see it as Beijing's efforts to appease militants in Pakistan with a view to restraining violent extremism in its own Xinjiang province.
I don't think one act like this is going to cause all militants who are running amok in Pakistan to say that China is our great friend, so hence we should not do anything. That would certainly be the Pakistan army's message to them. But these militants sometimes operate on their own thing. These are religious extremists. They don't care who it is. So in their ideology, if the Uyghurs or the people of the Turkmen people of what China calls the the Xinjiang kind of the province, they are also Muslims. So if the Islamic factor is strong enough, they will not stop at the border. They will. In fact, that is one of the reasons why China has been engaging Pakistan, because many of these Uyghurs and others did join Al Qaeda, and some of them are fighting in the Islamic State, with the Islamic State, as far away as Syria.
So Masood Azhar is one sticking point of talking between the two countries. What are the others? We'll elaborate more on that, and we'll deal with that as well. But at present, we're heading for a short commercial break. Keep watching Late Edition.
बच्चों, आज हम ऑड इवन के बारे में पढ़ेंगे। ऑड इवन का मतलब
मैम 15 अप्रैल नहीं मैम 15 अप्रैल से 30 अप्रैल तक। ऑड का मतलब ऑड डे पर और नंबर की गाड़ी, और इवन डेट पर इवन नंबर की गाड़ी।
बच्चों को भी पता है। क्या आपको पता है?
दिल्ली में 15 से 30 अप्रैल तक लागू है ऑड इवन, ताकि प्रदूषण और ट्रैफिक जैम से मिले दिल्ली को राहत।
उंगली थाम के जिसने चलना सिखाया, कड़ी मेहनत करके हमको पढ़ाया, हमारी खुशियों को अपनी खुशी बनाया, जिंदगी के हर सुख दुख में जो एक साया बनकर साथ रहे, ढलती उम्र में इन्हें अकेला ना छोड़ें। ध्यान रखें, माता पिता एवं वरिष्ठ नागरिक भरण पोषण एवं कल्याण अधिनियम 2007 के तहत माता पिता की देखभाल करना हमारा कर्तव्य है और उनको बेसहारा छोड़ना एक दंडनीय अपराध है। सामाजिक न्याय और अधिकारिता मंत्रालय, भारत सरकार द्वारा जनहित में जारी।
सुनो सुनो किसान भाइयों, सुनो सुनो, ओ सुनो सुनो किसान भाइयों, सुनो सुनो, सुनो सुनो किसान भाइयों, ध्यान लगाकर बात सुनो। नीम कोटेड यूरिया आया, खेती में नई क्रांति लाया। इससे यूरिया की क्षमता और बढ़े, नाइट्रोजन जमीन को बेहतर मिले, नीम के गुणों से कीटाणु मरे, पानी को दूषित ना करे। तो भाइयों, नीम कोटेड यूरिया से हो मेहनत सफल, बेहतर हो खेत, पानी और फसल।
कृषि और किसान कल्याण मंत्रालय द्वारा किसान हित में जारी।
मुबारक हो सेठ जी, आखिर चौधराइन आई गई कर्जा मांगने।
आओ आओ चौधराइन।
राम राम सेठ जी।
सुना है बिटिया की शादी तय हो गई है?
हाँ सेठ जी, बहुत अच्छा घराना है।
कुछ रुपए पैसों की मदद हो तो?
नहीं नहीं सेठ जी, मैंने इसके लिए ग्रामीण डाक जीवन बीमा पहले से ही करा रखा है। फिर भी जरूरत हुई तो दूसरी पॉलिसी पे लोन ले लूंगी। मैं तो बस ये न्योता देने आई हूँ।
ग्रामीण डाक जीवन बीमा, ताकि आपकी शान हमेशा बनी रहे।
अरे मेला है हाँ।
है, हाँ मेला है, ग्राम उदय का मेला है। हर पंचायत में लाया नया सवेरा है, नया सवेरा है।
ग्राम उदय से भारत उदय अभियान 14 से 24 अप्रैल 2016 को प्रत्येक ग्राम पंचायत में आजादी के बाद पहली बार गांव, किसान और गरीब के विकास के लिए ग्राम उदय से भारत उदय समारोह। दूसरा चरण 17 से 20 अप्रैल को ग्राम किसान सभा, जिसमें मिलेगी कृषि संबंधी सभी योजनाओं की जानकारी। प्रधानमंत्री फसल बीमा योजना, कृषि सिंचाई योजना, मिट्टी जांच, नीम कोटेड यूरिया जैसे अन्य कई कार्यक्रम की जानकारी गांव वालों को दी जाएगी। मेला है भाई मेला, ग्राम उदय का मेला है। ग्राम उदय से भारत उदय अभियान। अधिक जानकारी के लिए अपने ग्राम पंचायत से संपर्क करें।
बच्चों आज हम ऑड इवन के बारे में पढ़ेंगे। ऑड इवन का मतलब
मैम 15 अप्रैल। नहीं मैम 15 अप्रैल से 30 अप्रैल तक। ऑड का मतलब ऑड डे पर और नंबर की गाड़ी, और इवन डेट पर इवन नंबर की गाड़ी।
बच्चों को भी पता है, क्या आपको पता है?
दिल्ली में 15 से 30 अप्रैल तक लागू है ऑड इवन, ताकि प्रदूषण और ट्रैफिक जैम से मिले दिल्ली को राहत।
खाना रखा है अब्बू, खा लो।
ठीक है फरदीन, अब जाओ बेटा स्कूल, वरना लेट हो जाओगे।
फरदीन, 11वीं क्लास में एडमिशन मिल गया?
हाँ जी शुक्रिया। मेरे अब्बू मुझे पढ़ा लिखा कर बड़ा आदमी बनाना चाहते हैं और मैं अपनी पढ़ाई पूरी करके उनके इस काम को बड़ा करना चाहता हूँ। शुक्र है हमारे इस सपने को पूरा करने के लिए हमें मिल रही है अल्पसंख्यक कार्य मंत्रालय की तरफ से पोस्ट मैट्रिक स्कॉलरशिप।
भाई गरीबी के चलते हम तो नहीं पढ़ पाए, ये पुश्तैनी काम सीखा और अब तक यही कर रहे हैं। लेकिन सरकार के इस वजीफे के मिलते ही मैंने तो सोच लिया है कि लोहार का बेटा अब अपनी पढ़ाई पूरी करेगा।
पोस्ट मैट्रिक स्कॉलरशिप अल्पसंख्यक समुदाय के उन स्टूडेंट्स के लिए है जिनकी सालाना पारिवारिक आय 2 लाख रुपए से कम है और जिन्होंने मैट्रिक में 50% अंक प्राप्त किए हैं। और लड़कियों के लिए 30% स्कॉलरशिप निर्धारित है। अधिक जानकारी के लिए कॉल करें टोल फ्री नंबर 1800112001 पर। सबका साथ, सबका विकास।
सुनो सुनो किसान भाइयों, सुनो सुनो, ओ सुनो सुनो किसान भाइयों, सुनो सुनो, सुनो सुनो किसान भाइयों, ध्यान लगाकर बात सुनो। नीम कोटेड यूरिया आया, खेती में नई क्रांति लाया। इससे यूरिया की क्षमता और बढ़े, नाइट्रोजन जमीन को बेहतर मिले, नीम के गुणों से कीटाणु मरे, पानी को दूषित ना करे। तो भाइयों, नीम कोटेड यूरिया से हो मेहनत सफल, बेहतर हो खेत, पानी और फसल।
कृषि और किसान कल्याण मंत्रालय द्वारा किसान हित में जारी।
Welcome back after the break. You're watching Late Edition. In view of Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar's visit to China, today we are discussing the relationship between India and China, the way forward, and how far have the two countries travelled. Today we are joined in by two guests in the studio in Late Edition. We have Mr. P.R. Chakravarty. He is the former secretary of MEA. Also we have with us Mr. Alok bansal. He is a strategic expert. Mr. Bansal, we'll talk of how the two countries have also expressed their reservation when we talk of the strategic concerns they have when we talk of the military tie-ups of these two countries with other countries in the region. Now earlier you talked of how China is paranoid to India cozying up to the US. At the same time, India has also expressed its reservation when we talk of the infrastructure work which China has taken up in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, or for that matter even the Silk Route program in Pakistan by China. Now, reservations are on both the sides. Now, how do you read these reservations and how far will these have a bearing on the relationship, whether will it move forward?
See, by and large, Indian reservations are legally and constitutionally very sound. As I said, the CPEC, that is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, passes through a territory which China itself recognizes as a disputed territory. 1963 Sino-Pak agreement very categorically says that pending final decision on Kashmir. So China accepts. The second thing is Gilgit-Baltistan, through which this corridor is passing through, is not a part of Pakistan even according to Pakistani constitution. So Indian objections to any construction, any work, any presence of Chinese soldiers in this particular area has absolute sanctity as far as international norms are concerned. On the other hand, Chinese apprehensions as far as India cozying up to US is concerned are not legally tenable. They are, of course, strategic apprehensions of India becoming an ally of US are of course valid. But as you saw, even after the recent discussions, and when India said that we are going to have logistics exchange memorandum of understanding with the US, the Chinese reaction was that India is known for pursuing an independent diplomatic policy. And I think that has been India's strength. We have been hedging our bets, and I think that has held us in good stead. Now, here are just a few points. You talked of, is China trying to veto Masood Azhar's being declared a terrorist to appease the militants? To my mind, appeasement has never worked. And one of the best examples is Pakistan, where they tried appeasing militants and militancy kept spreading as they kept appeasing, kept signing peace deals. The second factor is that the Uyghur militants or the ETIM as of now is very, very closely aligned with global Islamic terror network. Be it TTP, be it Al-Qaeda, they are all linked. In fact, even the IMU, etc., all these groups are aligned. And in fact, if you go to Al-Qaeda website, etc., ETIM related articles are keep coming up off and on. Similar is the state as far as TTP is concerned, and the Taliban websites are concerned. Taliban propaganda also talks of ETIM. So to appease will not really serve any purpose. I think in this particular stance, China has tried to give a signal to Pakistan that we are standing by you. But again, China has forgotten that Masood Azhar was a convicted criminal. He was released by taking an aircraft hostage. Yes. The entire world knows it. Now to back somebody like that, who even he heads an organization which is proscribed even in Pakistan. Now, I don't know how China has done it. I think they are definitely on a weak foot. And I think India has given them a very, very strong signal by indicating its willingness to go in for logistics exchange memorandum of understanding to tell China that this is absolutely unacceptable proposition, that you are allowing a dreaded terrorist like Masood Azhar, who is not only convicted by Indian courts, but has been released by getting an Indian aircraft hijacked, killing some of the passengers, and of course, who heads a proscribed organization in Pakistan and was involved recently in attack in Pathankot and earlier in 2001 on the Indian Parliament. So I think China has a lot of introspection.
This is what was highlighted and was reinforced by the External Affairs Minister as well when she met her Chinese counterpart at the Russia-India-China trilateral meeting. But then, Mr. Chakravarty, China being one of the P5 powers is on one hand, and also you say that India, except for India, no other country is growing at the growth rate of more than 7%. Now, how important is the cooperation between the two nations for the region as a whole?
Well, I just begin by saying that India's message to China on Masood Azhar was very simple, that if China wants to be a responsible stakeholder in the international system, it can't stand by and back a terrorist, a convicted terrorist, which the whole world knows, as Alok just said. So I think that China is not very comfortable, in my view, taking such a position. But because of its close nexus with Pakistan, it has taken this position and protected Pakistan, or not Pakistan really, but sided with Pakistan and protected this man. But how far they are going to do so, or how long they are going to do so, is questionable. Now, in the region, for example, China is making inroads to its maritime Silk Route and the overland Silk Route, also called One Belt, One Road, and other things. Building ports in our neighborhood. Gwadar port, of course, is part of the CPEC, but in Sri Lanka they are building a major port city. It is only in Maldives too, I believe, they are trying to take over an island and build a port. Now, Maldives is very crucial in the Indian Ocean because it is very close to the sea lines of communication. So, and in Bangladesh they tried, but they didn't succeed there. So in terms of its regional outreach, China is doing a lot.
All right. So I would want you to take the thought forward. He says in the region, China is important for India as well. Now the focus, if it's not about boundaries, if it's not about military, then the focus of enhancing the relationship between the two countries should be the people-to-people contact, or for that matter, trade.
Undoubtedly. We need to understand that China has had a double-digit growth for a long period, and now the growth is slowing down. And one of the reasons is the single-child policy of China has actually reduced the availability of working manpower. And today, India is not only a huge market, we also have a large pool of qualified technical manpower. And as a result, Chinese are very much interested in investing in India. They want to take those production facilities outside China to other countries so that they can have the benefit of bulk production, which has actually enabled them to become the factory of the world. So one of the prime areas where they would like to invest is India. India, of course, has its security apprehensions, and as a result, bulk of the Chinese investment in East India and North India has not been allowed. So that has restricted them. But India is definitely a very lucrative market, and Chinese would want to invest in India because they realize that the best return that they can get, the slowing Chinese economy needs to invest overseas, and the best destination is India. The second thing is, as far as people-to-people contact is concerned, culturally, Oriental societies think alike to a very great extent. And when one travels to China, you will find it very surprising that most Chinese don't even know that there was a conflict between India and China in 1962. And as a result, as far as common masses in China are concerned, they don't harbor that sort of ill will or apprehensions against India as a common man in India harbors against China. And as a result, Chinese are more than willing to come to India. And I think that's where the e-visa facility, which Prime Minister Modi announced during his visit, has been very significant, because this is increasing. And what we are seeing today, globally, the number of Chinese tourists who are going abroad is increasing exponentially. So Chinese are a big number of tourists, and if they start coming to India, it is good for both the countries, because the apprehensions, the way many in India perceive Chinese, will also vanish away. And secondly, it's a beneficial thing, economically beneficial thing, because if the Chinese come and visit India, it boosts up Indian economy. And of course, many of them are may not be active but passive followers of Buddhism. So we have a very vibrant and dynamic Buddhist circuit where they can come and contribute.
So
to the
engaging more with each other is the crux word here, and the potential areas have to be tapped to enhance the relationship. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on Late Edition. So that was Late Edition, wherein we talked of the India-China relationship, how we've moved together, and engaging with each other more is the crux word here, as the External Affairs Minister said that we need to meet more often so that we could pace up with the developments in the international world as well, and also enhancing the relationship between these two countries. That's it in this edition of Late Edition. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.